Classic Games individual. Now O'Brien is blowing the doors off the field.
If we hadn't seen something similar pay off for her last night, the initial instinct might be, hey, you're pushing it a little too soon, Junior. Maybe we're going to hold off on hitting the NOS so early in this event. But she did something similar yesterday when the rest of referee pointed out. And she proved she's got the engine on the back end to be able to go on to such a fast pace and fight off some of the best athletes in the top heat.
And now O'Brien leading the field. Shelly just got to her sled in about 8th place. Now O'Brien, right side of your screen, down in lane number 1, you have Caroline Connors sitting in second. And a trail of athletes behind those two. Just over 5 seconds remaining. Now we saw Christy O'Connell get to the 50-yard mark. O'Brien just about 3 yards short. Seems like everybody else is lost in her wake.
And I love that O'Brien is the one athlete that was jogging back to her rings at the outset. All the other athletes immediately turned and started walking. Brian jogged, caught up with the rest of the pack before starting to walk. Just, one of those little demeanor things that you like to see from a young athlete.
The tiny little warrior. And a huge thanks to our friends at the U.S. Army. What's your warrior? Find out more by visiting GoArmy.com. 15 seconds to go. Your leader after the first interval is now O'Brien. Tommy, like you said, normally I would say is that was probably a bold strategy caught that in the first one, but what she did last night, kind of trust the tape that we saw coming in. Time to beat by Christy O'Connell, 8:08.
And this is when the event really gets real. This round is 7. We got a little taste of it, testing it out ourselves. Talked to my fitness consigliere, Dan Bailey, who also tested this event.
Little taste, felt like I was drinking out of a fire hose in the round of 7.
And he said the same thing, the round of 7 is when it really starts to set in. Even after that 1-minute break.
Now, one thing we did see is that O'Brien definitely pushed the pace early, where Alessandra Michelli, I can't say that she went slow, but maybe it was one of those strategies that we've seen some athletes do, saving themselves for the round of 7. Michelli last off the hand cleans, though. Michelli on the right side of the screen in the black and red. Now O'Brien, 1 rep left to go, and here she comes.
And Michelli also a little bit slower on the burpees over the bar. When she stands up, she's taking a second to collect herself before jumping over. And she's losing ground on some of the athletes during this buy-in portion.
Now O'Brien to her torque sled first. She has about 2 yards left to go before she crosses the white line, pulls out those handles, and will start making her trek back across the football field. 50-yard sled drag back. With a field of 4 or 5 athletes trying to keep pace with her between Caroline Connors, Rachel Bondarash, Emma Carey. And in lane number 8 above them, we have Ariel Lowen. Now O'Brien basically out of the screen. She has 10 seconds to go. Now we saw Ariel O'Connell had got 3/4 the way down. Emma Carey may get half the way down after this second interval. Now O'Brien just nearly getting halfway.
And that's going to, based on the amount of distance she made up on the pull there on that portion, considering she did have the turnaround, she's going to be right around at that similar time frame that we saw Kendall Vincentelli cross that line just before the next interval in. She should be able to make it on this next one, barring disaster, but it's going to be close.
It was very close for Ariel O'Connell, and she got it right at that time marker, which allowed her to run across the field. As Alessandra Michelli is making her way back to the rig, and she is just at the halfway point of the first sled push. As we are 10 seconds away from our third interval. Mal O'Brien, she's on the far left side. Then you have that bundle of sleds between 1, 2, 3, and lane number 8. Third interval, 5 reps, time to beat, bottom left corner of your screen. Christina O'Connell in heat 2 at 8:08. And it's not just going to be about finishing across the line on the pole. It's going to be that foot race across the 50-yard line to try to beat that time. Mal O'Brien, center part of your screen. 5 hang squat cleans at 125. Emma Carey to her left. One of 2 17-year-olds. Paige Powers in previous heat, 18 years old.
I like Mal's burpee technique, staying a little bit lower to the ground, keeping your center of mass closer to the barbell. You don't need to stand all the way up to get over the bar here.
To her sled first. Emma Carey has moved into second place. As we are 1 minute away from the time to beat. Then Mal O'Brien. 17 years of age. But competing like she's been here for years. And I think it's time to stop doubting her or wondering if she's going to be able to hang on. And we might have 2 other athletes in line to beat that, because Emma Carey and Rachel Vonderek, we finish. Knock, Madison. Mal O'Brien's for real. Emma Carey, foot race. She's going to get second place in the event and finishes outright ahead of Rachel Vonderek. And your 2 youngest competitors go 1 and 2 in event number 3.
I don't know about you, but there's some chills
all the way right down my leg, Tommy. All the way down my leg. Unbelievable.
Mal O'Brien just turned it on during that second and third interval. Once she got to the pull portion of it, that was the spot where we've seen most athletes struggle. Is actually where Mal O'Brien shined. And then some tremendous grip from Emma Carey too, to get the sled across at the same time as Rachel Vonderek, and then turn on the jets and still have something in the tank to beat her in the foot race to get second in the event.
And what's important about that is being such a young athlete, specifically to Emma Carey, to bounce back from not a bad finish in last night's event, because usually you see some of the younger athletes not have that emotional stability throughout the long weekend that is a CrossFit Games event. To bounce back and get second in this event speaks volumes for Emma Carey as well.
100%. The mindset that it takes for both of these athletes, from Mal to come out and attack that event the way that she did, and for Emma to stay in the pocket, battling with some of these top athletes, and fight back in the later round to also take a top spot when it came down to a foot race. That's maturity beyond their years.
Now the question is, who's going to finish in third? It looks like lane 8 has the best shot. Ariel Lowen of Renewed Strength CrossFit. She's just outside of the right part of your screen. She'll finish right under the 10-minute mark in lane number 1. Caroline Connors, left part of your screen in all black. She'll be the next to finish. And just behind her, Nicole McGahey out of CrossFit Progression. Should be next after Caroline Connors crossed the finish line right around 10:08. A solid finish for Nicole. She was sitting in a top 5 position after the first day of competition. And it's good for her because you look in the middle of the field, on the right side extreme, Alessandra Picelli is struggling through these torque sleds.
And she's taking some significant rest despite pushing the pace on a little bit of burst here and there. I don't know if that's ultimately going to get the job done, because She was in a race trying to catch up with Carolyn Stanley, who was in the top 5. She was actually tied in points with Mal O'Brien, but with how close the point spread is, she might be falling outside of the top 5 as well.
And it wasn't a top 5, as you say, coming in. There's, what, a 20-point spread between 5th and 12th. So now you're starting to look at Christina O'Connell's finishing place and what type of lead she can make maybe up close to the top 5 with one more event to go today.
And even bigger than that, Irma O'Connell was in 12th, was 27 back of 3rd place Mal O'Brien, who's also tied with Carolyn Stanley. So we're seeing multiple spots inside of that top 5 potentially getting shook up just from this one event.
Your leader after 2 events, Alessandra Pacelli, finishes in 9th in this heat only. And that's not to tie in the place finishings we've had in the first 2 heats. You might see a bottom 10 finish. One athlete left on the field in lane number 10, Emma Ferreira out of Cross of Milford. And that'll do it for the individual women for event number 3. I'm going to start to have to think of some more positive things to say about Mal O'Brien as she goes back to back. The same thing we saw from Colton Mertens on the men's side between event 2 and event 3.
And really, this could even be a bigger showing from Mal O'Brien, considering she took a shot at 200 pounds on the snatch in her final lift. She caught it. She was down in the bottom position, and for a while, it looked like she was going to stand it up, just lost her balance at the last second. We could be looking at, another 30 or 40 points for her from that first event.
Right off the bat, it was all Mal O'Brien in lane number 4.
Coming out early, no hesitation on pacing during the buy-in portion. Every single time to start these intervals, she was the first athlete to the sled, showcasing that same level of tenacity that we saw last night in Thruster Run 3.0. Like I said, after just a minor slip-up on the snatch event to start this weekend, it has been all gas, no brakes for Mal O'Brien. It's just hard not to be excited by the performance so far. The big question was, were any athletes going to be able to challenge Christy O'Connell's time from that first heat? Well, Mal O'Brien answered that with an emphatic yes, and I'll do it a little bit better.
Mal O'Brien winning her second event back-to-back, coming from last night. She's down with Derek Forrest.
Thanks a lot, guys. Here with Mal O'Brien, second event win of the weekend. The freeze pop, it's not frozen anymore, but 12 grams of sugar is going to do you well after this event. You got your crew behind you, your coach James Townsend. Just talk about the win. First time touching the twerk tank. What did you feel about that?
It felt like a normal sled, honestly. Just go and grind through it. So.
You were battling there with Emma Carey. No surprise there with that battle. Talk about seeing her in your periphery and how you were able to continue to push for number 1.
I honestly didn't even really notice who was around me. I just stayed in my own lane and did the best I could.
Yesterday you looked up at the Jumbotron. Today you just focused. Finally, yesterday you said age is just a number. I've got a number for you. Number 1. You're tracking that down. How do you feel?
It feels really good. It feels good to feel my hard work pay off, and I'm glad I can show it to everyone.
Congratulations. Guys, back to you.
Mal O'Brien back-to-back wins in event number 2.
3, 2, 1, go.
The 2021
weekend on the first event today. Burns back-to-back event wins, has been perfect ever since the snatch, and has dusted everybody in the field for 2 events in thruster run 3.0.
He won the individual men for the 4th and final event for the day. He just finished a nasty little interval. That's some high-skilled pulling gymnastics, and we're about to flip upside down and do some high-skilled pressing.
Yeah, the gymnastics skills have been really ramped up so far, being number 2, really highlighting the difference in the tests that we've had so far. Starting to round out the test overall with the inclusion of more movements with handstand walk, skier, deficit handstand push-ups. Those are a little grenade right in the middle of the event that could really shake things up as well.
Your latest service presented by CBD-MD. Now he had a great performance in Heat 1 by Jake Marconi. Almost had the time to eat all the way through. With another opportunity. This is an event that looks like, well, we have that phrase in your corner. How bad could it be?
Exactly. Marconi finished 2nd in the opening event today and so close and so far away. We're talking about the similarities in terms of the high-skilled gymnastics. Well, if we get a little bit more of that there, you have to look at Marconi in Heat 1, who was already winning and put out a top time when the gymnastics elements are mixed in.
If you read this event on paper, the thing that jumps off the most, as you said, Tommy, is those 30 deficit handstand push-ups, 6 inches for the men. And coming off a handstand walk and a skier going in, the way the athletes navigate that might be the difference maker. Who's going to win and who's going to lose as they'll sprint across the field into a 50-foot handstand walk to the skier.
You can just see how fast these guys are on their hands, just chewing up distance on the 50 feet. It's not a long handstand walk, which really allows some of these athletes to take a more active pace. Sometimes you just kind of let your body weight fall over the top and you're really just trying to keep your hands up. Now you're going to see them starting to actually pull with their arms, chew up ground a little bit faster, a little bit more aggressive in their pacing.
See when athletes make their way to their first 40 cows on the ski. Say a huge thanks to our friends at the U.S. Army. What's your warrior? Find out more by visiting GoArmy.com. When you look at this event, usually when you see a monostructural element like a run, row, or ski in there, you kind of blow it off. Because you look at the handstand walk or the handstand push-ups with the volume of cows twice, it really does put more of a premium on a monostructural movement.
Yeah, this is, I would say, the most significant maybe monostructural element so far that we've seen. The running was important in the back half of that event, but we got to see a handful of athletes be able to lead from the front last night. Here, because the handstand walk is relatively short, and for a lot of athletes, 30 handstand push-ups is something they usually have in the bag. It forces them to be a little bit more aggressive in their pacing, and maybe attack, especially this first set of calories, a little bit more than they would normally in training, just because they're going to have a ton of other athletes breathing down their neck.
Lane number 3, Grant Belrose, first off the skier. Marconi just to his left. Grant will take a short break, 30 reps, a 6-inch deficit. That lanes 2, 3, and 4 to Marconi, Belrose, and Rhodes on the far right side of your screen. 8 minutes on this event, so this is a very fast pace. I think 8 minutes with the amount of volume of reps we have jam-packed in here. There's really no room to pace in this chipper style pyramid event.
And even for someone like Grant Belrose, who we saw taking multiple breaks there, he's pushing the pace at the beginning because he's just trying to give himself as much leash as possible to be able to take those breaks and not lose too much ground.
Just past the 3-minute mark. Big Marconi, lane number 2, the tie-dye shirt. Still on the wall, lane 3, Melrose. Lane of the year for lane number 4, Justin Rhodes. So Marconi, Melrose, and Rhodes. Lanes 2, 3, 4 across. But it looks like lane number 7, Carlos Aladeo out of Cross and Marvel has moved to the skier for his final set of 40 cows. Here comes Justin Rhodes out of CrossFit MWM.
Aladeo living up to his ability and showcasing a little superhuman strength on those handstand push-ups.
Tom, you said the first 40 record. How about the second 40 when you only have a 50-foot handstand walk to finish?
Most of these athletes, like we said, 50 feet, they usually have to hit it back even when tired. We saw on the screen earlier that Marconi was holding about 1,400 to 1,500 calories per hour pace. That's aggressive, especially for 40. And you can see Carlos here really leaning into the handles. You can see the hinging at the hips, reaching overhead, really using his body weight, leveraging it during the hinge. Get as much weight into those handles as possible.
We'll talk about the shortness of the handstand walk. The interference it's taken to get there between the 40 cows, 30 deficit handstand push-ups, and 40 counts.